Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Post-Placement Support and Claims module. For those that have just logged in, it's Chris and Jess here from JobReady to step you through this session. So just to provide a quick overview of this module, it's all around the functions of the system that will help you spend more time with your clients and less on the previously cumbersome yet essential administrative tasks. For those joining us for the first time today, thanks for coming along, and please feel free to pop your questions in the Q&A panel below. So the content of this module will be all things post-placement support. So we'll be looking at the PPS tracker, completing PPS and the questionnaires, and also managing your PPS schedules. The claims management aspect will be the outcomes tracker and also CCU processes, that being the central claims unit. So now I'll hand over to Chris for the education piece.
Thanks, Jess. Hi again, everyone. Especially those of you who joined us for the previous module. So now we're going to cover everything post-placement support and claims or outcome tracking. So I'm just going to share my screen now for you so you can take a look at JobReady Live. So we start again from the JobReady Live dashboard, and we're going to go straight into post-placement support. So all your placements will download from ESS into JobReady, and then they'll then fall onto our support tracker. So every placement will be assigned a PPS schedule, and that will then determine when the next support is due for this particular placement. Now that could be either PPS or following PPS, it will also account for your ongoing support as well. So you can see here, this is now my support tracker. So the support tracker is used by your operational staff to identify what contacts are required to be done, also what's overdue and what's due in the future. So we follow a simple green and red system for PPS, identifying whether PPS is on schedule, and that's where the PPS due date, the next date you need to contact them, is in the future, or it will actually be red if that date's in the past. Similar to the job seekers filtering and the filtering that we covered in the very first module, you can actually extend and filter based on different characteristics of the placement as well. So I'm just going to clear my filtering so you can see the different color coding that's available. So you can see those placements that are overdue are all in red. Again, I mentioned it in the previously as well. This does have job active and DES placements for those of you who cover both programs. But we're just going to look at DES for the moment. So I'll just focus on my quick filter for DES. The other quick filters that I have on the screen, I can then identify only the placements that I've been assigned to, or I can look at that from a site, and also 2 levels of groupings that we offer in JobReady, whether that be a cluster-based grouping of sites or your region or state groupings as well. We can then further filter that to only show those placements where the PPS is overdue, or it's due today, or it's due this week. If I click on those, you'll see it populates that time frame in here. If I want to extend that, I can just change the dates here to extend that out to look across any date range. If we then go into one of these placements now, I'll just pick out this middle placement I have here. We can then see, first of all, who the job seeker is and what the position and employer is. And then we've got all our key actions at the top of the screen. First of all, adding a note. So again, if I want to quickly add a file note for this particular placement, that can all be done here, including your follow-up reminders as well. If the placement has actually ended and we're no longer tracking this towards an outcome or for any post-placement or ongoing support, we can actually end that placement, specifying the end date, the placement end reason, and also adding a note to that as well. That will then close off any claims and also the PPS schedule, so you won't be reminded to contact the participant or the employer about this particular placement. We can then add documents. We can then add evidence. So really important as a part of your post-placement support process to be uploading your pay slips and so forth. They can be done here. I'll also show you shortly how that can be done as a part of the actual PPS process. If your organisation has a risk assessment associated with placements, they can be launched from here. And as I covered previously in the job seeker management section, we can also generate QR codes, QR cover pages, sorry, so that you can bulk scan in documents. And finally, we can also record permissible breaks for this placement, including uploading of any evidentiary documents to support that permissible break. Now, entering the permissible breaks will then extend the due date of the associated claim that's related to this placement. If we scroll down the screen, we have all our key information regarding the employer and the vacancy and the placement over on the left-hand side. We can also edit some of this key information. So, for example, if we need to override the actual outcome start date, we can do that from here. And we can also specify a separate outcome start date for the 26-week claim as well. Moving down, we see our key employer details, and then most importantly, we have our support tab. So the support tab will show you when the date support is next due, what the frequency of contacts are for this placement, if there is an individual staff member managing the support for this placement, they'll be listed here. We can then also see the last date the job seeker was contacted, the last date the employer was contacted, and also what the current phase of that job seeker is. Generally speaking, that's going to be in PPS or ongoing support. Now, if we need to change any of these details that can actually be changed, it's just as simple as clicking on the pencil icon. And then we can actually change when the next support is due. So the date, if we need to change that. We can change the actual frequency of contacts. So if, for example, this placement needs to move from fortnightly contact to weekly contact, we can do that from here. We can specify who is managing the support for this placement if it is an individual. As with all key areas of the system, we also request the reason why this is being changed. So for audit purposes, you can look back and see why, for example, a frequency was changed. Then the icon, to the left will let you know a history of all the changes to the support for this placement. Now, actioning PPS is quite simple. Next to the support date, we have an action button. Clicking on this will launch our modal here. The contact date will pre-fill as today's date. If you are retrospectively recording this contact, you can just click on the calendar to select a different date. We then specify who we contacted. Was it the employer or the job seeker? What was the result of that contact? Was it successful or could not contact? We do encourage everyone to record attempted contacts as a part of PPS. Selecting could not contact will actually put a reminder for you to contact them the following day. If you select successful though, we then have the option to enter any quick comments. Now the support phase will always pre-populate if they're in PPS or ongoing support, and also the stage as well. we can then launch our PPS form. Just bear with me for a moment. Our developers look like they might be doing something at the moment, which is not good. Okay. Good to see they've left us alone now. So now this launches our PPS form. As I selected that the PPS was with the job seeker, you can see it's launched that job seeker specific form. This is just a really simple example of a PPS form. Obviously, this form will be specific to your organisation. In this example, I need to select, is the job seeker still employed? Yes or no? You can see if I select no, then there's additional questions I need to answer. And similarly, if I select yes as well. So I'll complete this. We do have electronic signatures available on all forms from JobReady. Probably not very common for you to have this against your PPS form, but this just gives you an example of what can be done against the forms. Once I submit that form, I'm then prompted to enter the wage history. So really important as a part of your PPS process to be capturing the actual pay slips as a part of that PPS. So you're capturing your evidence as you go. So here I can select the pay period ending, hours worked, pay rate, gross income, the verification source. This list can be modified by your JobReady administrator. Any comments? And then I can also attach the actual evidence of that wage history. So whether it's a pay slip or so forth, I can actually attach that here as well. And then we save that wage history record, and that then completes our post-placement support contact and also the wage history as a part of that single action. You can see here against the support tab, my support next due date has then been pushed out to a fortnight from now based on the schedule. And you can see that the last job seeker contact is also updated. If I scroll down the screen, we then have the different tabs. The support tab will then show me a history of all the PPS and ongoing support contacts that there have been for this placement. And you'll see at the top of the list is the contact that I just completed. Moving down into this section now, we'll just cover some of the other options that are available. We have full reminder scheduling in a similar way we do for the job seekers. For those of you that looked at that joined the last webinar, so we can create one-off reminders or recurring reminders as well. It's important to note that these reminders are separate to the PPS and ongoing support contacts, which are handled through the support tab. We then have your general file noting available, where you can just create and record any of your notes applicable to this particular placement. We then have the 3 communication methods, so SMS, letter and claims. So you can send out your communications directly from the placement. Your documents tab will list all the any documents or any evidence that you've uploaded for this placement. And that also includes any of the pay slips that you've uploaded as a part of recording the wage histories that we touched on just earlier. We then have our forms section, which again, similar to the job seekers, you can use to fill out any electronic forms that you have available. Most common example will be a risk assessment that I covered at the top of the screen earlier. And then we have their full wage histories, outlining all the wage history records that you've recorded. Now, one thing our development team are working on at the moment is providing you with a graphical representation of how the job seeker or the participant is tracking against their benchmark hours. So based on the hours that you've actually recorded and their benchmark hours, are they on track to recording and achieving their outcome? And that's coming very soon. Now onto the claims tab. So every placement will have the claims generated for it with the associated due date. Now this will obviously be extended to account for the new claiming program from 1 July. So we will have that 4-week and also 52-week outcome claims in here. So JobReady will tell you the type of claim, when that claim is due, the dollar amount for that claim, and the status as well. What this means is once you've done your post-placement support leading to that particular outcome, once you're satisfied that you have all the evidence required in order to take this claim, this is where the JobReady centralised claims unit functionality takes over. So from a PPS perspective, you can submit this claim to the centralised claims unit. And then we can select whether this is a payslip verified claim, the outcome type, whether that's a full or a partial claim, any comments, you'll then see any existing evidence attachments that have been uploaded. Obviously, if you've uploaded your payslips or any other evidence as a part of your PPS process, you won't need to upload any other documents. However, if you haven't uploaded everything just yet, you can drag and drop all your evidence into here. And then we submit that claim to the CCU. So you'll then see for that 13-week outcome that I just submitted to the CCU, that status has been updated. If I hover over that status, it'll tell me the date and time that was submitted, who submitted it, and any comments that have been entered. It also gives me a ticket number for that claim. Now for CCU staff, they then get access to the CCU Kanban board. So under Finance on the left-hand side, we select CCU Kanban board. Now the CCU Kanban board is a list of all the claims that have been submitted to the CCU and where exactly they are at in their life cycle. So you'll see the board is broken down into columns. Each column represents the status of the claim, with the idea being that claims transition from the very left-hand column, which is effectively your to-do list, through to the right-hand side, which is a claim eventually being lodged and completed or closed. We have full filtering available at the top to filter the Kanban board as required. So as a CCU staff member, I can just tick mine, hit the search button, and that will give me a list of all the claims that I'm working on at the moment. You'll notice that the claims are color-coded, and this color coding indicates how long the claims have been, how long it's been since the claim was submitted. Red indicates the claim was submitted over 2 weeks ago. The orange color indicates the claim was submitted between 1 week and 2 weeks ago. We also have a yellow color, which indicates the claim was submitted between 2 days and 1 week ago. And then green being most recent, and it was submitted either 2 days ago or less. If I just uncheck the mine to view all the claims, as a CCU staff member, if I'm now ready to work on a new claim, I can pick the top record off the to-do list and drag that over to in progress. That indicates that I'm now working on this claim. You'll see that my initials have been added to the top left-hand side of that claim, so everyone knows that I'm working on it. And it's also now in the in progress column. To actually view the details of this placement, so for example, I need to go through and look at all the evidence that's been attached. I can click on ticket ID. I can then select, do I want to view this particular claim or the placement? If I click on the claim, it'll take me over to that claim where I can see all the key claiming details. But most importantly, I can come down and see any evidence attachments that have been created for this claim. I can also see a full audit trail of every change that's been made. Now, once I've reviewed that evidence, I can then transition that into one of the other columns on the screen, depending on what's happened with this claim. Say, for example, that I've assessed the evidence and it's actually missing the payslip for a week. I can drag this claim into the awaiting info column. This indicates that I am requesting additional information from the staff member that submitted this claim through to the CCU. So I can then select the reason for change. For example, that might be payslip missing. I can then enter comments. That a payslip is missing for this date range. If I need to reference an attachment that's already been attached to the record, for example, it might be that one of the evidence attachments states that it's a payslip for a given date range, but it's actually not. I can select that I'm referencing that particular attachment, and then I can update the claim status. That will then send an email notification through to the user that submitted that claim, letting them know that I've requested additional information be provided. They can then click on the link from the email and follow the prompts to actually upload the additional information. Once they've done that, the claim will then appear in the review additional information column, and I will also be notified that they've uploaded that additional information via email, so I can action that claim immediately. Then we can then simply transition the claim through statuses and obviously ideally to that actually being lodged. Now you can set up sub-statuses for claims. So within each column, there can be different sub-statuses if you require. Now you do still need to take that claim in ESS, and then overnight, that claim will link up to this particular claim in JobReady, and that will then be closed. A few other things that we can do from these claims on the Kanban board via these 4 buttons down here. First of all, we can change the status directly from here without dragging and dropping. Some mobile devices don't support dragging and dropping on the Kanban board. So if we do need to change status on a mobile device, we can do it directly from that button. We can also change who the claim is assigned to. We can view a history of all the changes to the status for this claim, so we can see the transition from one status to another. And we can also really quickly add a new note for this claim. You may notice this little private note button here as well. The private note will keep that note only visible to members of the central claims unit only. So that gives you an overview of how to use the Kanban board to manage all your claiming within JobReady. As you can see, it's very visual and very interactive for users to manage their workloads. What we'll do now is jump into our outcome tracker. So the outcome tracker is used to give you a whole overview of all the placements that you are tracking through to outcome and exactly where they're at. So you can see in this example, I'm tracking 5 placements through to outcome. I can then see for my 3 claims exactly where they're at, and that's all represented by visual icons. So you can see the X means it's more than 5 days overdue, so there's action required. And then we have things like claims been lodged. There's additional information that's been requested. And there are a couple of other icons indicating that the claim has been taken on ESS, or also that a claim is future payable, so it's not yet due. We then have those quick filters here as well, where you can just quickly filter all those placements that you're looking after, all those placements for your site or your site grouping. You then have the other filtering that we covered earlier as well, so you can extend that. So you may, for example, want to see all the DES 13-week claims that are due next month, for example, and you can filter that from here. And then you can also use some really common filters or some really handy filters, such is there an overdue claim, which will list all the placements that do have an overdue claim. And then you can also filter by specific claim statuses as well. You can use our generic claim state filter to actually filter, for example, all the placements that have a claim that is awaiting additional information. So you can see that the filtering is very flexible to allow you to narrow down all those outcomes that you're tracking at the moment. So that gives you an overview of how you can use JobReady Live. First of all, from a PPS perspective, so tracking all your claims, all your placements from PPS, but also from claiming as well. Now these filter through to some of the reports we have in JobReady to allow you to report on that post-placement support and also your claiming as well. I'll give you a quick look at those, but they'll be covered in more detail in the reporting section, in the reporting webinars in the future. So first of all is our support tracker summary, which just gives you a holistic overview of how all your placements are tracking as far as PPS is concerned. If we just look at our DES only column, we can then see from a national, state, and also site and regional level, using the pluses to expand, how we're tracking as far as PPS goes. That's from a green, where everything's on schedule, red, what's overdue, and then representing what is overdue as a percentage. As you can see, I'm very good at my job, so I don't have any overdue at the moment. You can also click on the numbers to actually drill down and see how that's represented as far as individual records. One other report I'll show you quickly is our daily claim summary. The daily claim summary gives you an overview of all the claims from a state, region, and site level, and where they're tracking as far as the central claims unit pipeline, as we call it. So essentially all the claims that the CCU are working on at the moment, broken down by their key statuses. So how many are awaiting additional info, awaiting assessment by the CCU as well. You can also hover over these to get a little definition of what falls into that column. And most importantly, what's the activity been today? So how many claims have actually been lodged from a number perspective, but also a dollar figure perspective. So really handy for your site, regional and state managers to get an idea of what their claims pipeline is looking like at the moment. So that then brings us to the end of our PPS and claims management module. I'll open it up to any questions that you may have at the moment. Okay, really good question. Does the the tracker also have education placements on it? Yes, it does. Yeah, education placements will appear in there as well. Another question about permissible breaks. Do they need to be entered into ESS or job ready? You still do need to enter them into ESS. However, if you do want job ready to be accurate from a claim forecasting perspective, it's advisable that you enter that permissible break in job ready as well, so that you do have an accurate representation of when claims are falling due. Another question, does the wage and hours entered into the form show totals at the end of the outcome period? That's exactly what we're working on at the moment, so very shortly those will be summarised, which will also provide you with a visual representation of whether that placement is on track to meet the benchmark hours to outcome. Another question, can you look at 3 different sites at once, or in fact multiple sites at once? Absolutely you can. I'll give you an example from our PPS tracker. So I'll just remove some of these filters so it's easy for you to see. If, for example, I'm looking at my DES placements and I want to view the only for a couple of sites, I can add my site filter, and then I can select all the sites that I want to view. And that's a multi-select, so you can add as many as you need. Then you just click on apply. Okay, another question, are you able to amend the hours worked from that wage history perspective? Now, it doesn't appear at the moment, but yes, we've just completed the ability to actually edit this once you've actually recorded those. It was really important for us to ensure that there's an audit history there as well, so we didn't want you to be able to edit it without being able to see who and when things were changed. So yes, you will be able to modify those and see when they were actually changed. Okay, a really good question has just come through, and again, it's something that we're working on as a priority at the moment. If a participant does have 2 jobs tracking towards a claim, can you see both positions? So the way we'll be handling that is allowing you to actually join placements together. So from a tracking perspective, you're just tracking one outcome, but you'll be able to see that relates to 2 different placements. So yes, you will be able to do that. Okay, looks like that's probably all we have as far as questions go. Again, please feel free to either email them through to Jess if you think of anything post-webinar. But thank you very much for joining, and we'll issue Q&A with any other questions that come forward. Thanks for joining.